They do not know that the new prisoner with the iron body and the tattoo of the cross is the most dangerous prisoner ever to enter the prison. The movie talks about an ex-drug dealer who is imprisoned and has to deal with the mafia. When his wife is kidnapped and threatened, he tries to do anything, including entering the most terrifying prison to save her. Will his efforts save the lives of his wife and child? Let's find out with Brawl Cell Block 99. The film begins when Bradley takes a car to the workshop where he works. It turns out that his boss was waiting for him in front of the workshop and wanted to talk to him about something important. Seeing his boss's unusual body language, Bradley became curious about what he wanted to talk about. His assumption was correct, because Bradley was fired because of the economic crisis. Shortly after, he packed his things and left the workshop when he got home. Bradley found his wife, Lauren, talking on the phone while she was sitting in the car in front of the house. Bradley suspected that she was cheating on him with someone with him. So he went immediately and opened the car door, told her that he had just been fired from his job, and he was upset, and while talking to him, he noticed a red kiss mark on her neck, and because of his feeling of jealousy, he grabbed his wife's phone angrily and checked the last call, and it turned out that his wife called another man. He ordered his wife with great anger to enter the house. After that, he expressed his anger by destroying his wife's car, as well as breaking the rearview mirror and removing the front cover of the car by force, and ordered her to enter the house. Bradley invites Lauren in for a chat at home and asks her how long she's been with the guy she's been cheating on. And his wife admitted that she had an affair with another man for 3 months. Bradley was busy with his work and had no time to spend with her after expressing their feelings for each other. Bradley invited his wife to start a new life, and Lauren agreed. After being fired from the repair shop, Bradley decides to work with a drug delivery man named Jill. Upon hearing of this, his wife disagreed with his decision, but Bradley nevertheless insisted on working with him because it is difficult to get a job quickly in the circumstances of the economic crisis. After 8 months, Bradley began his work as a drug courier. He delivered the package to the drug dealer's apartment, and returned home. His conditions began to change, as he began to live in luxury. Bradley moved to a larger house, and Lauren became pregnant again. While cuddling his wife at home, Bradley received a phone call from Jill asking him to come to his house immediately. Bradley left his wife and went quickly. Upon arriving at the dealer's apartment, Bradley meets a new friend of his generation named Eliezer, a tough man with dark hair and an extensive drug cartel in Mexico. Eliezer came with 2 of his men, Roman and Pedro. These 2 men have a very strong physical structure. Eliezer said that these 2 men would accompany Bradley when he was in service. However, Bradley rejected Eliezer's idea because one of his men named Roman seemed to be drunk. Bradley thought that if Rome accompanied him, he would cause him a problem. Eliezer defended his man and said that he had trained Roman well. His child is born. In the end, Bradley accepted the offer, but on the condition that he be their leader. Bradley and Eliezer's men immediately carried out the mission and arrived at the port at night. Bradley and Eliezer's men began a mission to recover the packages that had been placed at the bottom of the sea. The 3 entered a small yacht in the sea, and when they reached the middle of the sea, the yacht stopped and Pedro prepared to dive to the bottom of the ocean. After a short while, Pedro found a huge box like a treasure chest attached to chains. He opened the chain lock as quickly as possible. He took all the drug boxes and swam to the surface of the sea. Bradley and Roman helped him lift the package. After that, they returned the yacht to the port. Bradley suspected that the police were ambushing them while they were sailing on the yacht, so he ordered Roman and Pedro to throw drug packages into the sea, but Roman and Pedro refused Bradley's instructions, so they got into a fight. Roman managed to break up the fight, but by the time they reached the parking lot the police had surrounded Roman and Pedro. Upon seeing the accident from afar, Bradley quickly walked to the yacht. Unfortunately, he met a policeman on the way. Bradley had to think quickly to avoid suspicion and pretended to be a civilian by helping the police. Roman and Pedro were shot. Pedro died in an exchange of fire, and the police arrested Bradley at the police station. Bradley was interrogated by the investigator, and the investigator learned that Bradley is a smart person who can easily deceive others. Nevertheless, the court sentenced him to 7 years in prison on charges of premeditated murder and possession of prohibited weapons. After he was sentenced, they sent him to the prison. Upon his arrival, Bradley deceived him for a physical examination. Then the prison warden asked all the prisoners to leave their belongings and examine them in the clinic. After that, an old man named Lefty escorted him to his cell upstairs. When Bradley reached his cell, he met a guard named Andre, who explained to him the rules for the prisoners. One of the rules is that everyone must go out and stand in front of the cell to be recorded. When the bell rings, night falls and the bell rings. The prisoners immediately stand in front of their cells and are examined by the warden when all the prisoners upstairs stand in front of their cells. Bradley is still asleep and the inmates have to wait for him to wake up. Shortly after, Bradley woke up and was scolded by the warden, who asked him to be more disciplined and to abide by the prison rules. Meanwhile, at Bradley's house, Lauren, who was asleep, suddenly found an intruder who broke into her house and kicked her leg. After she passed out, the kidnapper took her to an unknown location. The next day in prison, Bradley was asked to meet the prison employee in her office. The employee named Pence told him that the obstetrician wanted to meet him. It turned out that he was his wife's obstetrician. He wanted to discuss with him the complications that Lauren suffered during her pregnancy. The next day, it turns out that Dr. Bellman is one of Elizer's henchmen, who goes to tell him that his boss lost $3.2 million because of his failure to get the drugs out. After that, he showed him a picture of Lorraine sitting on a chair with her eyes closed and her hands tied. Dr. Pillman threatened to stress Lorraine if Bradley did not comply with Eliezer's wishes. He asked Brady to kill a mod named Christopher Brigg in exchange for his wife. The prisoner was in a different prison, specifically in cell number 99. Bradley returned to the cell. But before he entered, he took off his shoes and started beating the guards. Bradley had intentionally made a noise so that they would transfer him to cell block 99 in a separate maximum security prison. When Bradley arrived at Siglev, the head of the prison received him, and after examining him, they took him to cell number 59. Upon his arrival to the cell, he was surprised that the room was different, as it was dirty and dark. He could not stand the smell and took off his shirt to cover his nose. After lying down for a long time, the officer took him outside to breathe air. A guest in the yard named Derek approached him, then Bradley asked him about Christopher, but Derek said he did not know him. Electrophoresis. When he entered, he saw a lot of broken glass on the floor. Meanwhile, Lorraine was looking very weak, and Dr. Bellman was also at the scene with a man from Korea who works as an abortionist. The scene turned to the prison again, where Bradley started shouting Christopher's name, then a prisoner next to him replied that there was no prisoner with the same name. Bradley was taken to a basement to meet the inmates, and it turned out that Elizer was a prisoner in block 99, and Bradley learned that the doctor's students were a trick and that Elizer wanted them to transfer him to block 99 to torture him there. Elizer said angrily that he lost $3.2 million because of him in addition to his imprisonment. And for killing his brother-in-law during a gunfight in the port, Bradley was tortured until he became weak, then they showed him a picture of his wife, who was in the same condition. After severe torture, Bradley was dragged to his cell, but he returned to Elizer's cell and attacked his men. Elizer's men fell one by one, and Elizer was left alone and strangled him and asked him to send a message to the doctor to cancel his wife's abortion and send her to Jill's house. After breaking his leg, Elizer fulfilled Bradley's wish, and Lauren ran when she arrived at Jill's house. After that, Jill shot the doctor from a long distance, killing him and the Korean doctor. In prison, Bradley received news that his wife had saved him over the phone, and he asked his wife to put the phone on her stomach so that the child could hear his message. He was hoping that his child would grow up healthy. Bradley looked sad because he knew he would never see his child. After turning off the phone, he returned to Eliezer's cell and attacked him until he cut off his head. Finally, the warden entered the prison and shot Bradley in the head, killing him. In Brawl Cell Block, starring Phineas and Tom Ferry.